کی باتیں ہوتی ہیں، لگتا ہے جیسے اردو میں، لگتا ہے جیسے ہندی میں قرآن سنایا جاتا ہے، لگتا ہے جیسے ہندی میں قرآن سنایا جاتا ہے۔ عیدوں کے لیے ہے عید کا دن، او کیا خوب سما ہے اہل نظر، ہے دست نبی پر یوں ہے در، جس طرح گواہی دینے کو، جس طرح گواہی دینے کو قرآن اٹھایا جاتا ہے، قرآن اٹھایا جاتا ہے۔ عیدوں کے لیے ہے عید کا دن، پڑھیں گے؟ اور ذرا لطف لیجیے گا اس کا۔ سورج کی تپش، صحرا کی تپش، اور اس پہ ولایت کا اعلان، کیا روز ہے آج منافق کو، کیا روز ہے آج منافق کو، ہر رخ سے جلایا جاتا ہے، ہر رخ سے جلایا جاتا ہے۔ عیدوں کے لیے ہے عید کا دن، اور ہم ذکر علی جب کرتے ہیں، کیوں جلتے ہو یہ فطرت ہے، ہم ذکر علی جب کرتے ہیں، کیوں جلتے ہو یہ فطرت ہے، جب مشکل سر پر آتی ہے، جب مشکل سر پر آتی ہے، اپنوں کو بلایا جاتا ہے، اپنوں کو بلایا جاتا ہے۔ عیدوں کے لیے ہے عید کا دن، اور پیغام ولایت کی خاطر فطرت کو بدلتا ہے خالق، اندھوں کو دکھایا جاتا ہے، اندھوں کو دکھایا جاتا ہے، بہروں کو سنایا جاتا ہے، بہروں کو سنایا جاتا ہے۔ عیدوں کے لیے ہے عید کا دن،
نہ چھیڑ مجھ کو اسی میں تیری بھلائی ہے، نہ چھیڑ مجھ کو اسی میں تیری بھلائی ہے، غم حیات علی تک میری رسائی ہے، فراز دار ہے میں سم ہے اور ثنائے علی، فراز دار ہے میں سم ہے اور ثنائے علی، چلو چلیں وہاں محفل سجی سجائی ہے، چلو چلیں وہاں محفل سجی سجائی ہے۔ اب آپ ماشاءاللہ بھی آپ ہمارے تقی بھائی اور تا سمی کو سن رہے تھے، ہم نے سنا تھا کیا نام ہے شنکر شمبھو کی جوڑی، سمجھ رہے ہیں نا، صابری بردرز کی جوڑی، اب جو ہے تقی طہا کی جوڑی بھی آج سے انشاءاللہ۔ جزاک اللہ، مولا آپ کو سلامت رکھے، آپ کی اس خدمت کو قبول فرمائے۔ اور اب میں آپ کو ایک بہترین لب و لہجے کے شاعر کی سماعتوں کی نظر کر رہا ہوں۔ جناب احسن صاحب سے میری درخواست ہے کہ آئیں اور منظوم نذرانہ عقیدت بارگاہ مولا میں پیش فرمائیں، انشاءاللہ اس کے بعد ہم مولانا کو زحمت دیں گے۔ صلوات پڑھیں محمد و آل محمد، اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد۔
بارے دیگر صلوات۔ ذکر حیدر کیا کیجئے، زندگی کا بھروسہ نہیں، ذکر حیدر کیا کیجئے، عاقبت بھی سنور جائے گی، یہ فریضہ ادا کیجئے، زندگی کا بھروسہ نہیں، ذکر حیدر کیا کیجئے، لاکھ سجدے کیے جائیے، پھر بھی بخشش نہ ہو پائے گی، لاکھ سجدے کیے جائیے، پھر بھی بخشش نہ ہو پائے گی، یہ محمد کا فرمان ہے، ان کے گھر سے وفا کیجئے، یہ محمد کا فرمان ہے، ان کے گھر سے وفا کیجئے، مر بھی جائیں تو مرتے نہیں، ہم تو کثرت سے ڈرتے نہیں، مر بھی جائیں تو مرتے نہیں، ہم تو کثرت سے ڈرتے نہیں، کفر ہے گر ولائے علی، ہم کو کافر کہا کیجئے، کفر ہے گر ولائے علی، ہم کو کافر کہا کیجئے، در پہ آ کر یہ شبیر کے ایک راہب نے کی التجا، در پہ آ کر یہ شبیر کے ایک راہب نے کی التجا، میں سوالی ہوں شاہ زمن، مجھ کو بیٹے عطا کیجئے، میں سوالی ہوں شاہ زمن، مجھ کو بیٹے عطا کیجئے، بغض حیدر ہے بغض نبی، یہ نجاست ہے سب سے بڑی، بغض حیدر ہے بغض نبی، یہ نجاست ہے سب سے بڑی، جو علی سے عداوت رکھے دور اس سے رہا کیجئے، جو علی سے عداوت رکھے دور اس سے رہا کیجئے۔ دو فریقین میں ایک ہی حق پہ ہوتا ہے اے دوستو، دو فریقوں میں ایک ہی حق پہ ہوتا ہے اے دوستو، کون جنگ جمل میں مگر حق پہ تھا فیصلہ کیجئے، کون جنگ جمل میں مگر حق پہ تھا فیصلہ کیجئے، زندگی کا بھروسہ نہیں ذکر حیدر کیا کیجئے۔ سلام
محمد بچوں کو بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل۔ عزیزان گرامی، یہ عید غدیر وہ خوشیوں کا مجموعہ ہے کہ پورے سال میں ہر عید ہر عمل کے ساتھ زیارت وارثہ اور زیارت امام حسین کو مقدم رکھا گیا۔ تقریباً پورے سال میں 83 ٹائم ہم اعمال میں زیارت وارثہ کو پڑھتے ہیں، زیارت امام حسین کو۔ یہ واحد رات اور واحد دن ہے غدیر کا جس دن زیارت وارثہ کو پڑھنا منع ہے۔ اب آپ اندازہ لگائیے اس دن کی خوشی کا آل محمد کے لیے کہ اس دن جو ہے کسی طرح سے کسی مومن کی آنکھ میں آنسو نہ آئے۔ اگر وہ مقروض ہے تو اس کے قرضوں کو ادائی کی خوشخبری دی جائے، اگر وہ بیمار ہے تو اس کی عیادت کی جائے، اس کو آرزو دی جائے۔ تو بہرحال یہ غدیر اللہ نے ہمارے لیے ایک ایسا خوشی کا دن رکھا ہے، اور ماشاءاللہ ہم اس خوشی کے دن میں ہم سب جمع ہیں۔ بے شک ہمارے ساتھ چیلنج ہے، صبح بچوں کا اسکول بھی ہے، آپ سب کے جاب بھی ہیں، لیکن آپ سب کے استفسار پہ مولانا بلال رضوی صاحب ڈیلس سے تشریف لائے ہیں۔ ماشاءاللہ ڈائنامک اسپیکر ہیں، اچھی مجلس سے پڑھتے ہیں۔ میں تو ان کو کافی عرصے سے تقریباً 11 سال سے تو جانتا ہوں، ان کے والد صاحب سے میری دوستی بھی رہی، ڈیلس میرا آنا جانا بھی رہا۔ بہرحال اس کے بعد مجلس سے اسپیچ دیتے دیتے مولانا نے ان کو نجف اشرف بلا لیا۔ وہاں پر انہوں نے اپنی دینی تعلیمات کا سرے سے آغاز کیا، اور فی الحال یہ یہاں پر نہج بلاغہ میں پی ایچ ڈی کے لیے آئے ہوئے ہیں۔ ایک اپرچونٹی تھی انشاءاللہ کہ اس کو ضرور کیا جائے، اور اس کے بعد پھر نجف کا سلسلہ دوبارہ سے شروع ہوگا۔ اور ماشاءاللہ اردو بھی بولتے ہیں، اور انگلش میں ہم نے بچوں کے لیے بلایا ہے، سب کے لیے ہی، لیکن یوتھ ان کے ڈائنامک انداز کو بہت پسند کرتے ہیں۔ ہم خدا سے یہی دعا کریں گے کہ خداوند منان جو ہے ہمارے ہر قوم کے ہر اسپیکر کی دہن میں زبان میسم تمار عطا فرمائے۔ فراز دار سے میسم بیان دیتے ہیں، رہے گا ذکر علی ہم زبان دیتے ہیں۔ تو انشاءاللہ اس ذکر علی کو باقی رکھنے کے لیے ہمیں میسم تمار کی طرح اپنے کردار کو، اپنے اخلاق کو، تو آپ سب سے بس یہی دعا ہے کہ خداوند منان ہمارے تمام جو ہے خطبہ اور تمام ذاکرین کو اپنے سائے میں رکھے، اور آل محمد کے علوم ان کی زبان سے مجمع کے درمیان ज़ाहिर होते रहें और उससे इस्तेफ़ादा किया जाए। मैं बहुत ज़्यादा हाइल नहीं होऊंगा मौलाना के और आपके दरमियान, इंशाअल्लाह मैं इल्तिमास करूंगा। और आने का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि बहरहाल हमारे एक शॉर्ट नोटिस पे आप तशरीफ़ लाए। और मैंने माह मुहर्रम के भी देखी, अभी इनके स्केजुअल में अगर होता है, लेकिन इंशाअल्लाह अटलांटा जुलूस के मौके पे तो आप इंशाअल्लाह आप आ रहे हैं। मैं मौलाना बिलाल रिजवी साहब से दरख्वास्त करूंगा कि तशरीफ़ लाएं। आप हजरात बारगाह मौला में अब एक जीती जागती सलवात से इनका इस्तकबाल फरमाएं।
आवाज़ बुलंद सलवात।
رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي دل على وجوب وجوده افتقار الممكنات وعلى قدرته وعلمه أحكام المصنوعات المتعاليا مشابهة الجسمانيات المنزه بجلال قدسه عن مناسبة الناقصات. نحمده حمدا يملأ أقطار الأرض والسماوات ونشكره شكرا على نعمه المتظاهرات المتواترات. والصلاة والسلام على صاحب الآيات سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم شجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والآثار الباقرية والمآثر الجعفرية والعلوم القادمية والحجج الردوية والجود التقوية والنقاوة النقوية والحيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا. أما بعد فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد. For the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen, one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When one examines life with the eye of reflection, they'll see that around us the blessings of Allah are incountable and are innumerable. As the Quran it states, وَإِن تَعُدُّ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, that if you try to count and number the blessings of Allah, you won't be able to do so. But as it goes, not every single blessing is equal. That there are stages towards these blessings. Some blessings are greater than others. That when you look even at life, you find there is a greater blessing than life itself. For the Quran, it describes some people that although they are alive, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ, they're like cattle, they're just wandering without aim. But you find there comes one blessing as you climb the stages of these blessings upon which Allah, He perfected and He completed every other blessing. And that ni'mah is the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is that blessing about which Allah, when the sixth Imam was asked about the verse of the Quran, ثُمَّ لَا تُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَ إِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, that when you look at this verse, you find it states that verily, verily, upon that day you will be asked about the greatest of blessings. That in Arabic grammar, you find this word, la tus'alunna, has the lam of tawqeed, the lam of emphasis, and the noon of emphasis. That upon the day of judgment, there will be a blessing that without a doubt Allah will ask about that blessing. You know, they came to the sixth Imam. They said, "Oh, our master, tell us what this blessing is." Now the Imam, he has a way when he speaks to the people. He says, "What do the people think?" The man replies by saying that the people say it is ma'kulat and mashrubat, that it's food and drink. The Imam says, let me give you an example. That if there was a generous person and that person invited you to his house, then after giving you food and drink and feeding you, he stands at the door and he asks you, what did you eat and what did you drink? What would you say about that person? He says, "Oh my master, what is the point of his generosity? He gave us something little, then he asked for it." The Imam says, Allah is Saqiyul Asqiya. Allah is the generous of the generous. How can you say that this na'im upon the day of judgment is food and drink? The Imam says this na'im is none other than the wilayah of us Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And you find this day is that Eid of wilayah, the day of Ghadeer. This is that Eid. When the sixth Imam was asked about this Eid, he would say, Huwa Eidullahil Akbar. That this is that greatest Eid of Allah. Now, why is Eidul Ghadeer Eidul Akbar? You find when we have this celebration of Eid, Eid is the celebration upon the completion of an act. That you find when you fast through the month of Shahru Ramadan, after fasting 29 or 30 days, you have a day of Eid. Upon the completion of the acts of Hajj, you find when all of those acts are completed, you have a day of Eid. But you find there was something upon this day which was completed, which is greater than fasting, which is greater than Hajj, and that is the entire religion of Islam itself. When the Quran, it says, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. That upon this day you find it is Eid. But you know, Eid, it doesn't mean celebration. This word Eid, it comes from Ada Ya'udu. It comes from meaning to return. That this is that day that Islam, it returned towards its purest sense with the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And it's a celebration for us that we hold on to that covenant of our nature and our fitrah with the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. It's a day of Eid for us. Now Maulana kindly, he mentioned many of the etiquettes, many of the a'mal upon this day. This is that day about which the 8th Imam says that feeding one believer, one mu'min upon the day of Ghadeer is like feeding every single prophet and righteous individual. This is that day about which the 6th Imam would state that it was mentioned amongst the a'mal that near the time of Zawwal there is a prayer to recite. The 6th Imam would say that the one who recites this prayer, it is as if he will be there upon the day of Ghadeer. For the time of Zawwal was that time when Rasulullah lifted the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen and he gave that famous sermon explicitly announcing the wilayah of the Imam. Now when you look through the life of Rasulullah, you find throughout his life, the testimony to the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen was explicitly and outwardly mentioned. But upon the day of Ghadeer, after this day, there was no doubt left. For this is that day where he says those lines, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. And it is with these lines, I don't even need to do the translation, all of you don't know, but the translation is, whoever's master I am, Ali is his master. Now from this line, I begin the topic of tonight's majlis. What I want to analyze is the different linguistic meanings of the word Mawla and what does it mean for Amir al-Mu'mineen to be Mawla and Waliullah. When you look at this discussion, you find Shaykh al-Mufid in great details in one of his treatises. You find Shaykh al-Mufid in one of his treatises in great details discusses the different meanings of the words Mawla in his treatise titled Aqsamul Mawla fil Lisan. That what are the different meanings of the word Mawla within language. You find within that, he mentions 10 different meanings towards the word Mawla. Of course, when you go towards the grammarians and Ahlul Lugha, those people that know linguistics, for example, when you go towards the dictionaries, there will be over 30 meanings mentioned towards the word Mawla. But why does Mufid mention 10 meanings in this work? The reason he mentions 10 meanings is that within the hadith and the language of the mutakallimun and the theologians, there were 10 meanings towards Mawla that were used, and they are those meanings found within the hadith. And as I'll go through the different meanings, you'll find that one of them is the apparent and the appropriate meaning, and all of them are derived from this apparent and appropriate meaning. You find the first meaning of the word Mawla is al-awla, that he is more worthy. That when we say that Amir al-Mu'mineen is Mawla upon the day of Ghadeer, you find the meaning is that he is al-awla bit-tasarruf wa-ta'a. That Amir al-Mu'mineen is more worthy of dealing with the affairs of the Ummah and obedience. And you find this is seen within the Quran as well in Surah Al-Hadid. When Allah, He says, فَالْيَوْمَ لَا يُؤْخَذُ مِنْكُمْ فِدْيَةٌ وَلَا مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا مَأْوَاكُمُ النَّارِ هِيَ مَوْلَاكُمْ وَبِئْسَ الْمَصِيرُ. Allah says upon that day, there will be no ransom taken from you, no exchange taken from you, neither from those who disbelieve. Your abode is the fire, and the fire is your Mawla. Now this may sound strange to a number of individuals, that why does this ayat, this verse, it say, An-naru hiya mawlakum, that the fire is your master. You find over here, in this verse, Mawla is used in its primary meaning more worthy of. That those individuals are more worthy of the fire. You find this is the first meaning of Mawla. The second meaning of Mawla is Malikur Rik, slave owner, possessor of a slave. The third meaning of Mawla is Al-Abdul Mu'taq, a freed slave or an emancipated slave, as we'll say. The fourth meaning of Mawla is what? Al-Malikul Mu'tiq, the person who frees a slave is also called Mawla. The fifth meaning, I mentioned 10 meanings, this is number 5 over here. The fifth meaning of Mawla is An-Nasir, and helper. And this is seen within the Quran, this meaning as well, when it says, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ مَوْلَى الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَأَنَّ الْكَافِرِينَ لَا مَوْلَى لَهُمْ. That Allah is the helper of those who disbelieve, and the kafirin, the disbelievers, they have no Mawla. And the tafasir mention Mawla here means helper, La Nasira lahum. So you find that this is the fifth meaning of Mawla. The sixth meaning of Mawla is Ibnul Am, the son of your uncle, your cousin is also called Mawla. The seventh meaning is Al-Jar, your neighbor is called Mawla. The eighth meaning is Al-Mutawalli bil-Jarira, that a person who is charged with a crime is called Mawla. The ninth meaning is what? Al-Halif, that your ally. Somebody who is not from your tribe but is getting the support of their tribe is also called Mawla. And the 10th and final meaning is that a Sayyidul Mu'ta, a leader who is obeyed, is called Mawla. Now I mentioned that there are 10 meanings towards Mawla. And the point to note here is that the first meaning is the meaning that the word was formulated for. All of the other 9 meanings, they return towards Awla and more worthy of. For example, Al-Jar, neighbor. A neighbor is called Mawla because he is more worthy of being helped than somebody who is not your neighbor. For example, your cousin is called Mawla because he is more worthy of receiving an inheritance than somebody who is not from your family. And each of these different meanings, they go back towards the first meaning. And it is the use of the people of language, those who use language, they use words in their apparent sense and their dhahir sense. I'll give you an example. If this program were to start at 9 p.m., and I told the organizers that I will arrive by 9 p.m., 9 p.m. it comes, you all are waiting for me, I come at 10 p.m., You say that, oh Sayyid, you told us that you'd come at 9, our program's at 9, you arrived at 10 p.m. I say to you, oh, I did not mean 9 p.m. literally. I meant that mentally I'll be there at 9 p.m. because at 9 p.m. I'll start preparing my lecture and getting into the mindset to give a speech. You'll say that this isn't something which is appropriate because when somebody they speak using the apparent meaning of the word, and if they're not meaning the apparent meaning, they'll give some evidence. That I would have said towards you that I only mean that I'll come 9 p.m. figuratively. But the fact that I didn't use anything to support that, that means either I am ignorant of speaking and the rules of language and how to communicate, or I'm trying to be ambiguous and confuse people on purpose. When Rasulullah says, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla, that whoever's master I am, or Ali is his master. You find because there is no other evidence indicating any other meaning, logically we take the apparent meaning of this word. And if Rasulullah did not mean this, either na'udhu billah, he is ignorant of speaking, or he is trying to confuse people. And this is below the status of Rasulullah, for he is the most eloquent of the speakers, as he says, "U'titu jawami'u al-kalim." That we have been given the substantive, the complete words, and Rasulullah has been sent to guide. You find there is no other connection, there is no other evidence except for the first meaning for the word Mawla, which is al-awla bit-tasarruf wa ta'a, that Amir al-Mu'mineen is more worthy of dealing with the affairs and being obeyed. You find there is a number of evidence. As I said, that if he meant any other meaning, he would have brought al-qarina, he would have brought an external evidence to show so. But you find the external evidence outside of the hadith and within the hadith show that there is no other possible meaning except for the meaning which I mentioned. For example, when you look within the hadith, you find that Rasulullah on the day of Ghadeer didn't just say one line. It was an entire sermon that 2.5 to 3 hours. Rasulullah, he gives the longest sermon of his life upon the day of Ghadeer. But before this line, before saying, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla, he says, Ayyuhan nas, man awla bikum min anfusikum. And a different version is, Alastu awla bikum min anfusikum, that am I not worthy of the souls of the believers over themselves? All of them, they reply by saying, Bala, yes, Ya Rasulullah. It's at that point, he says, Ala faman kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. And you know, Rasulullah made everyone testify to his own wilayah before saying this line. And he says, فَمَنْ كُنْتُ مَوْلَى فَهَذَا عَلِيٌّ مَوْلَى. You find that this fa over here at the beginning of the sentence is harful atf, that it is a particle of conjunction. That for example in English we have the word and. If I started this speech and I come up to the mimbar and I say, and this is my conclusion, you'll say you can't start a speech by using the word and. The same way Rasulullah cannot start a speech with the word fa. The fact that he says faman kuntu mawla shows that it is in connection with the rest of the theme of the speech, where he testifies to his own wilayah before mentioning the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But he doesn't just stop there. He says, Allahumma wali man walahu, وَعَادِ مَنْ عَادَهُ وَانْصُرْ مَنْ نَصَرَهُ وَاخْذُلْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُ. He says, Oh Allah, befriend and support the one who is the friend of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and leave the one who has left Ali ibn Abi Talib. Help the one who helps Ali ibn Abi Talib, and desert the one who deserts Ali ibn Abi Talib. You know, it's no easy task to speak about Amir al-Mu'mineen. I remember what Ayatollah Jawadi Amali would write in the introduction of one of his books about Amir al-Mu'mineen. He would say that although the tongue of the speakers, they begin to shake when they mention this man, and the hands of the writers, they begin to quiver as well, when they seek to describe that king who describes himself in Nahjul Balagha by saying that I am as the summit, up to me no bird can soar, down from me the torrents pour. But I seek his generosity when he said those lines, Saluni, Saluni, qabla an tafqiduni, that ask me before you lose me. Using the generosity of these lines, I begin to write about Ali ibn Abi Talib, that these are the words of Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli. And when Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, who was the compiler of the first Arabic dictionary, Al-Ain, and is an individual who was the teacher of the famous grammarian Sibawayh, when he was asked about Amir al-Mu'mineen, he delivers these lines which are a masterpiece of Arabic poetry and prose, when he says, احتياج الكل إليه واستغناؤه عن الكل دليل على أنه إمام الكل في الكل. He says the necessity of everyone for him and him being free of needing them is proof that he is the imam of everyone and every single thing, that this is the reality of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you find this reality is explicitly shown in his title as that Mawla and Waliullah. You find when you look at this word Mawla, the root of this word is the word Wila. Raghib al-Isfahani, who was a famous lexicon individual who would write about language, in his famous lexicon titled Mufradatul Quran, he writes down what the meaning of Wila is. He says the meaning of Wila is that when you place two things so close to one another that you don't know where one thing begins and another thing ends, you call that wila. You find Amir al-Mu'mineen is Mawla, that this is that connection that he had with the Prophet of God. But you find that there are 4 dimensions to the wilaya of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I'll analyze these 4 dimensions and I'll conclude upon the speech. You find the first reality when we say Amir al-Mu'mineen is Waliullah, or we say he is awla, that he is more deserving, is the first reality is that he is more deserving of mahabba and love. You find that love is that reality. When we want to explain why Allah created the universe, you find the most fundamental explanation is the act of love itself. As the famous Hadithul Qudsi, it says, Kuntu kanzan makhfiya, fa'ahbabtu an a'raf, fakhalaqtul khalq. Allah, He says, I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known. So I created all of creation that they may get to know me. You find Allah, He says, it was my love to be known which led to the creation of the creation. You find it is love that is the most fundamental force within the universe, and it is that most basic reason of creation. For if you say that Allah created because He had the power to do so, I have the power to create a chair, for example, but it doesn't mean that I have to do it. But one must have that desire and that love to do so. And you find this is that most fundamental reality which is asked for Amir al-Mu'mineen and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam as well. You find that when an individual, he comes towards the Imam, he says, "Oh my master, do you love me?" Amir al-Mu'mineen replies by saying that don't ask me this question. Look into your heart. If you find that my love is within your heart, know that I love you much greater than that. You find this is that reality of the Imam, and this first level of the wilaya and the worthiness of Amir al-Mu'mineen. You find even the non-Muslims, they have this. That this is not just limited to the followers of Ahlul Bayt. That when you find that there was a Christian man in Lebanon, when he wants to write a book, he titles that book Imam Ali Sawtul Adalat al-Insaniya. He says that Imam Ali is the voice of human justice. He says that I grew up in a Christian household. I did not know about Ali ibn Abi Talib. But one day I had a friend who gave Nahjul Balagha towards me. When I opened Nahjul Balagha and I opened a page, I saw that Ali was talking about a scientific matter which didn't make any sense towards me. I closed the book. I said, I won't open Nahjul Balagha again. He says after that, some time had passed. After that time had passed, I was watching television. As I was watching television, I found that the individual was speaking about the same thing which Ali ibn Abi Talib was speaking about. Upon that day, I decided to open Nahjul Balagha. And when I began to read it, I started upon that day. From then to now, I have read Nahjul Balagha over 40 times within my life. That you find this is a non-Muslim, but he is speaking about the love and the reality of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is that reality which Allah, He asked for a higher level from the Muslims when He says that I ask for nothing in return except for what? Except for mawadda, for my qurba and for my family. You see that there is a difference between mawadda and mahabba. In English, we're limited sometimes. We have one word, love. But you find that in Arabic there are multiple words for the word love. You find ishq is a word. You find uns is a word. You find mahabba is there. You find mawadda is there. You find junoon is there. All of these different words for one word within the Arabic language. But there are some fundamental differences between mahabba and mawadda. The first difference between the two is that mawadda is that type of love which has obedience and ta'ah within it. That when you love that individual and you seek to follow in their footsteps, you find this is mawadda. The second difference is this, is that you find mahabba, it may increase, it may decrease. It doesn't remain the same. But mawadda is that love which continuously increases. The third sign of mawadda is this, is that when you have this form of love, an individual isn't able to conceal and hide this love. You find that this was the reality of Mitham al-Tammar, that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, oh Mitham, do you see that tree? Mitham says, yes, I see that tree. The Imam says, oh Mitham, no, a day will come that you will be hung upon this tree because you would recite my virtues. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, oh Mitham, you have my permission not to recite. You have my permission to remain silent. Mitham al-Tammar, he replies to the Imam by saying, oh my master, even if they cut my arms, my legs, they burn my body and they bring me back to life with 70 times, every single time I will recite your virtues. You find that day it came. The land was Kufa. It was Mitham al-Tammar. Hajjaj was the ruler. You find Hajjaj, he wants to kill Mitham. Mitham, he smiles. He says, my master Ali told me that I would be put upon this tree and my tongue will be cut as I recite his fadail and his virtues. Hajjaj, he says, I'll do everything. I'll kill you. I'll cut your arms, your legs. But I won't cut this tongue of yours to show that your master Ali was lying. At that point, Mitham al-Tammar, he begins to speak. He says, O people of Kufa, listen to the fadail of Ali from the tongue of Mitham al-Tammar one last time. I am the follower of that Imam who was with the Prophet before anyone else. In travel, he was with the Prophet. At home, he was with the Prophet. In the Haram, he was with the Prophet. Outside of the Haram, he was with the Prophet. Until the end of the sermon, Hajjaj says, stop, cut the tongue of Mitham al-Tammar. You see, this is that reality. When Ali ibn Abi Talib said something by the will of Allah, it came true. You know, I remember a separate incident. A man, he comes up. He says, you know what? I know how to show that this Ali, he's not all that, if I can use some common language. You find he goes up to the Imam. He says, oh individual, you claim to have ilmul ghaib. Tell me what I will eat for dinner upon this night. The Imam says that you'll eat a form of rice pudding, that it was a dish of milk and rice. You find this man, he says, very well, it's very simple. I have to eat another dish, and this will prove that Ali is not telling the truth. He goes home towards his house. He asks his wife that what's for dinner. The wife replies by saying rice pudding is for dinner. He says, you know what? I'll go towards my neighbor's house. I won't eat at home tonight. He goes towards the neighbor's house. He knocks upon the door. He says, listen, something had happened. What's for dinner? He says, rice pudding is for dinner. This man says, what is this, Ali ibn Abi Talib? He says, you know what I'll do? I'll go and then towards that caravan. There was a caravan which was coming in. This caravan is from outside of Medina. This caravan must surely not have this. He goes towards the leader of the caravan. He says, listen, I'm hungry. Do you have anything to eat? He replies by saying, yes, we do. He says, what is it? He says, we have rice pudding to eat. You find this is that imam who has that connection with Allah. You find the second reality to the wilayah of the imam is his right to be the spiritual leader of mankind. You find every single Muslim, even the orders of the Sufiya, the Sufi Turuq, all of them go back towards Amir al-Mu'mineen except for one of the orders, the Naqshbandi order, that goes back towards Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. But at the end of the day, who was Muhammad bin Abi Bakr raised by? He was raised by Amir al-Mu'mineen. You find Amir al-Mu'mineen has that right to be the spiritual guide of mankind. And you find within Islamic mysticism and irfan, this title is given to that individual as al-Insanul Kamil, the perfect man. You find the doctrine of al-Insanul Kamil states that the perfect man is that link between Allah and the cosmos, and it is through him that the blessings of Allah come upon this earth. As Amir al-Mu'mineen says in Nahjul Balagha, that every other individual, they receive blessings through our intermediation, but we are the ones without any barrier, we receive blessings from Allah. You find this is that reality of al-Insanul Kamil, the perfect man. That the perfect man is Wajhullah, the face of Allah. You know, what does Wajhullah mean? You find when you want to recognize someone, you recognize that individual through the face of that person. When you look at the face, you come to some form of an understanding. When we say Amir al-Mu'mineen is Wajhullah, that when you want to understand Allah, do it through the teachings and the existence of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is that man that at every occasion he showed humanity how to have that connection with Allah. You know, it was the day of Jamal, that in the midst of the battle, a man comes to the Imam and he says, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, is Allah one?" At that point, all of the other individuals, they jump upon this man. They say, "Oh man, do you not see that the heart of Amir al-Mu'mineen is divided, meaning that he is busy right now? What time is this to ask a question, is Allah one, in the middle of the battlefield?" The Imam says, "No, let this individual ask the question. For what he is asking is exactly what we want from those on the other side." You find in one line, we begin to understand the spiritual worldview of Amir al-Mu'mineen. That every movement of the Imam was to understand Allah and the Tawheed of Allah. That if this battle is going on, it is for the oneness of Allah. That if one wants to move in the spiritual path, it is a path of the recognition of Allah, and through this recognition we begin to solve the problems within our life. You find upon the battlefield, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gives one of the most profound discourses about the unity of Allah. He says that when you say Allah is one, there are two aspects of this which are appropriate and two aspects of this which are not appropriate. As for the two aspects which are not appropriate, when you say Allah is one, do not mean that He is one numerically. That when we say Allah is one, we do not mean that Allah is one numerically. Because the Imam, he says, "Man la tanya lahu la yadkhul fi babil a'dad." That the one who does not have a second cannot be numerically counted. He says the second of these which is not appropriate for Allah is that when you say He is one of the type of a species, You find this is not appropriate. Then he says, "Oh my master, then what do we mean when we say Allah is one?" The Imam, he says that when you say Allah is ahad, that Allah is one, what in reality you mean is that a second cannot be like him. That there is nothing that can be like him. And the second of this is that when you say Allah is one, Allah cannot be divided in your aql, in your intellect, in your takhayyul and imagination, nor can he be divided in his existence. That Amir al-Mu'mineen, in the midst of the battlefield, he gives one of the most profound discourses about Tawheed, that you want to know what spirituality is. The goal of Islamic spirituality is to love Allah and become the beloved of Allah. To love Allah and become the beloved of Allah. There's only one man in history whose love for Allah has been certified upon the tongue of revelation, and whom Allah's love for him has been certified by the tongue of revelation. And that is Amir al-Mu'mineen upon the day of Khaybar, when the Prophet, he states, when the Prophet, he says, لَأُعْتِيَنَّ الرَّايَةَ رَجُلًا غَدًا رَجُلًا كَرَّارًا وَغَيْرَ فَرَّارٍ يُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. That tomorrow I will give the flag towards a man, somebody who is brave, somebody who doesn't run away. He loves Allah and His Prophet, and Allah and His Prophet, they love this individual. You find this is the only individual. That reciprocal love between him and Allah has been certified upon the tongue of revelation. Because Islamic spirituality means to internalize two sources. The first is the Quran, the second is the Sunnah of the Prophet. That from the angle of the Quran, you find the Prophet, he said, Aliyun ma'al Quran wal Quranu ma'a Aliyin. That Ali is with the Quran and the Quran is with Ali. And in terms of the Sunnah, you find the Prophet, he says, Ya Ali anta ka nafsi, you are like myself, O Ali. You know, Amir al-Mu'mineen in Nahjul Balagha, he says that he gives a beautiful example. He says, I would follow the Prophet of God in the way a baby camel follows its mother. Now, why does Amir al-Mu'mineen give this tashbih? Why this analogy? You find that when you look at a baby camel follows the exact same footsteps of her mother. That it doesn't go left. It doesn't go right. It doesn't fall behind. It doesn't go forward. It stands by the mother and takes those exact same footsteps. Amir al-Mu'mineen shows this is how close my reality was towards the Prophet of God. The look at these words of the Imam in Nahjul Balagha. You know, I remember Abdul Hamid Katib. Abdul Hamid Katib in the Umayyad era was one of the greatest writers of that era. When they asked Abdul Hamid Katib that, oh man, how did you gain this eloquence? You know what he replies by saying? He says, I memorized 70 sermons of Ali ibn Abi Talib. After I memorized 70 sermons of Ali ibn Abi Talib, my mind began to sew and sew and sew thoughts together. That my eloquence, it comes from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. That you find this as that reality. Now I'll mention I mentioned that I will mention 4 realities and 4 dimensions to the wilayah of the Imam. The first is his right to be loved. The second, it is his right as the spiritual leader. The third is what we call al-awla biz-ziyama, that he has the right to the political authority of the Prophet of God after the Prophet of God. You find this is that reality of the Imam, that when you want to look at that perfect governance, then you look at the reality of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that this is that individual, that when the United Nations in 2001, they wrote an Arab Human Development Report, You find that Kofi Annan, he writes, the head of the UN at that time, he says that I am surprised that there is anarchy in the Arab world when you have the example of the governance of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And he says that the letter of Ali to Malik al-Ashtar is the greatest letter in human governance ever written. That you find an individual like Ranjiv Gandhi. Of course, many of you from India know Ranjiv Gandhi better than many of us. You find it stated that Ranjiv Gandhi to each of his ministers would give the letter of Amir al-Mu'mineen to Malik al-Ashtar. And you find within this letter, the reality of the governance of the Imam, it begins to open up and it shows what that perfect rule of the Imam would have been. You find the Imam, he says, "O Malik, forgive the people in the way that you would want Allah to forgive you." He says another line at a different spot. He says, "O Malik, know that the people, they have faults. That if you want your faults as the ruler to be concealed, then conceal the faults of your subjects." You find line after line, but there is one line which summarizes one's outlook on life that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gives in this sermon. He says, when he speaks about the people, he says, فَإِنَّهُمْ سِنْفَانِ إِمَّا أَخٌ لَكَ فِي الدِّينِ أَوْ نَذِيرٌ لَكَ فِي الْخَلْقِ. He says, "O Malik, know that the people are of two types. Either they are your brothers in faith or they are your equals in humanity." You find this is what Amir al-Mu'mineen would show. It's stated that Amir al-Mu'mineen in the middle of the winter, Amir al-Mu'mineen was wearing a very thin abba and cloak. He was shivering in the winter from the cold. They said, "Ya Ali, you are the leader of approximately 30 of today's countries the Imam was the leader of." They say, "Ya Ali, that why are you in this state? Why do you not buy something warmer?" The Imam replies by saying, "I am afraid that there are people in Yemen," meaning the farthest part of my rule, who are in hunger, who are in the cold. How can I call myself Amir al-Mu'mineen when I don't feel what the Mu'mineen and the believers are going through? You know, it's stated in a separate incident. Imam Ali was on the mimbar. As he was on the mimbar, he was doing this towards his cloak, the sleeve of his cloak. A child and his father are walking by. The child, he says to his father, "Oh my father, is it because it's a hot day that Ali is fanning himself like this?" The father replied by saying, "No, that's not the case. The case is that Ali ibn Abi Talib only has 2 pairs of shirts, even as the Khalifa. And when he washes them, you find he puts them on afterwards and he is drying himself from not having more than clothing than that." You find this is that reality of the Imam. The Imam has that right to leadership. He is al-awla, he is more worthy of that right. And the final right and dimension of this wilayah of the Imam, of him being Mawla, you find is that he is al-awla bit-tasarruf. You find that perfect man is that man that Allah, by the will of Allah, you find creation shows its obedience towards that individual. As in when you read Ziyaratul Jami'ah, you find that the Imam, he says, it is because of us the vegetation comes out of the ground. It is because of us that the rain, it falls upon the earth. That these are those individuals, not by themselves independently, but dependent upon the reality of Allah. You find creation, it becomes subservient towards that perfect man. And you find today is that day where we honor Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, I wanted to conclude upon a small historical incident from the day of Ghadeer. That what happened upon the day of Ghadeer. You know, it's stated that after the Prophet, he's returning from his one and only Hajj. They reached that point that after that pond of Khum, you find that all of the caravans, they would have dispersed in different directions. That spot of Ghadeer was the final spot where everyone would have been together to hear this announcement. You find it is at that spot, the verse is revealed, Jibreel comes down, he says, Ya ayyuhar rasool, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa in lam taf'al fama balaghta risalata, wallahu ya'simuka minan nas. That you find that Jibreel, he comes down, he says, O Prophet of God, Allah has revealed, and he says to you, O Messenger, announce that which has been given towards you, that which has been revealed upon you. And if you do not announce this, it is as if you have not delivered your message towards the people. That how important was this announcement? That Allah, he says, فَمَا بَلَغْتَ رِسَالَتَهُ, that if you don't carry out this command, it's as if nothing has occurred. It's at that point the Prophet of God, he says to Salman, O Salman, everyone who is behind the caravan, call them towards this spot. And everyone who has gone ahead, called them back towards this spot. That in the way that the Prophet of God, he gathered everyone on the day of Ghadeer. It's a symbol for humanity that if you want perfection, then gather upon the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then after that, Rasulullah, he says, O Salman, set a mimbar. You find he says, O Salman, set a mimbar upon that day. Salman, he goes and gathers the saddles of the camels. He begins to put them one on top of another. You find upon that day, it was such a hot day, near the middle of the day, that people, they would be putting cloth upon their head, upon their feet from burning. You find on that day, Rasulullah gives the longest sermon of his life. That when you look at it, the longest sermon from the life of Rasulullah was the khutbah of Ghadeer. You find Rasulullah, he tells an individual that, oh man, your voice is very loud. Go upon that hill and whatever I say, shout it so every single person can hear. Then he says to the people, O people, those of you who receive this message here, go and give this message towards those who aren't here. That those who have the message of the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib, it's upon them to give this message towards those who don't have it. You find Rasulullah, he goes upon that pulpit which was made of the saddles of the camels. On three sides in front of him were men, behind him the women were there. You know, after Rasulullah, he gives this sermon, and there were many parts in this sermon with the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, in this sermon, he also states the hadith of Thaqalain one time. He says, I leave behind two weighty things, the Quran and my Ahlul Bayt. You know, they said to Imam as-Sadiq, that why upon the day of Ghadeer, the Prophet of God, when he says, I leave behind two weighty things, the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, his fingers were these two fingers. You know, in Arabic, each finger has a name, sababa, wusta, towards the end of it. You find, why did he not use these two fingers, the sababa and the wusta? Why did he use these two fingers? Imam as-Sadiq replied by saying, there is a subtle difference between this and this. When you say this, you find one finger is bigger than the other finger. When upon the day of Ghadeer, when he was announcing the wilayah of Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he says, I leave behind the Quran and Ahlul Bayt, you find Rasulullah, he uses those two fingers which were the same in size. You find he gives this sermon, he raises the hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, Man kuntu mawla, fahada aliyun mawla, fahada aliyun mawla, fahada aliyun mawla. You know, after he gives this entire sermon, the time it came to give allegiance and bay'ah towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. You know, on the day of Ghadeer, women, they gave allegiance first towards the Imam. That even on the day of Ghadeer, it was ladies first, as they say. You find, you know, how they gave allegiance. You find Salman, he sets up a tent for the Imam. And the narrations, they differ. One narration says that the Imam would have a piece of cloth on one side and the women would touch the piece of cloth from the other. The other narration says, no, there was a bowl of water. the Imam would put his hand within the bowl, and the women, as a sign of bay'ah and pledging allegiance, would put it on the other side. But you find after that, after they gave their allegiance, a time came that each of those individuals, companions, they began to give allegiance towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. Some of them said, Bakhin, Bakhin, Yabna Abi Talib, that congratulations towards you, O the son of Abu Talib. But at one point, they go towards Rasulullah. They say, Ya Rasulullah, Ali is doing something strange. Rasulullah says, what do you mean? They say that when Ali is giving allegiance, his hand is facing downwards, his hand isn't facing upwards. Rasulullah, he says that I've made Ali the Mawla of the believers. Why don't you go ask Ali himself why he's doing this? When they go towards the Imam, they say towards him, Ya Ali, that when you are giving allegiance, why is your palm facing down? Why is it not facing upwards? The Imam, he says that I am not asking allegiance from you. That when your hands are in dua, your hands, they face upward because you're asking. He says, you are giving allegiance towards me. My hand is facing down. They say, Ya Ali, we're still not satisfied. Do you have any other evidence? You find Amir al-Mu'mineen says, did you not hear the Prophet say that Yadahu ka yadi, that the hand of Ali is like my hand? And the Quran, it says, Innal ladina yubaya'unaka innama yubaya'una Allah yadullahi fawqa aydihim. They say, O Prophet of God, whoever pledges allegiance towards you, the Quran, it says us, pledge allegiance towards Allah, and the hand of Allah resides over their hand. This is the reality of Amir al-Mu'mineen as the Mawla, as the master of the believers. But you find that Shaykh al-Tabarsi in his book Al-Ihtijaj, he states that there were certain companions who had the eyes of ma'rifah and recognition open. They would come to the Imam and they would congratulate the Imam, but they knew what realities would open. You find one of them comes to the Imam, they say, Ya Ali, congratulations. But those battles before, which would be fought with words, now those battles will be fought with arrows, Ya Ali. Another comes up, he says, Ya Ali, congratulations, my master. But those battles which were fought hiddenly, now they'll be fought outwardly. These are those individuals. The eyes of ma'rifah and recognition was open for these people. And this is that status which we seek to achieve through our actions, through our recognition of the Imam. With that said, let's raise our hand upon this blessed day of Ghadeer. Upon that day when Rasulullah raised the hand of Ali ibn Abi Talib, we raise our hands towards Allah upon this day. We say, Ya Allah, through the right of Amir al-Mu'mineen, wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are going through difficulty, whether it's in Yemen or Iraq or anywhere else, we pray for help to come towards those individuals. Wherever any of the lovers of Ahlul Bayt have any hajat, have any needs, are going through difficulties, Ya Allah, through the right of Amir al-Mu'mineen, give help towards them. Ya Allah, we pray for the strength to walk upon the footsteps of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. We pray to implement the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. We pray to receive the intercession of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And our every prayer, it ends with this dua. We pray for the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم صلوا على محمد وآله الطاهرين.
السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا خير خلق الله. السلام عليك يا محمد ابن عبد الله خاتم النبيين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا أمير المؤمنين.